Good Monday morning to you. I wanted to take a little bit of time today in this week's Money Monday session to talk a little bit about negotiation in the fashion and apparel industry. This is going to be an inevitable skill that you are likely going to have to learn if you are a brand owner, or if you are a product developer, or if you are a product manager, kind of depending on the role, but definitely if you are a brand owner and the CEO of a company, you're going to want to learn a little bit about negotiation and how to work with your factory on some of this stuff. This came up recently with one of our clients who is new on our books, and the CEO had asked me to send over a couple of different target costs to him. And so what I ended up sending him was based on his retail prices. And I usually start pretty aggressively with target costs. When I go into a negotiation, regardless of kind of what it is, whether it's bidding on a house or trying to buy a car or working with a factory on an apparel piece price, I want to come in at a place where I would be really, really happy if I got a yes, right? Like if that car sticker price is $40,000 and I would be thrilled to only pay $35,000, why not ask? That's kind of my go to starting point in a negotiation. Like, what would be a number that would make me really, really thrilled to actually pay for this thing? And so I gave him a target price of this garment of, hold on, let me look at my record just to make sure again. He was wanting to sell the piece for $125. So I gave him a target price of $25. And he kind of started to question, he felt like that was really aggressive. Like he felt like that was a really low number. He didn't see how we could potentially get there with the piece that he wanted to make, that he wanted to be able to sell for $125. And it kind of got us into this conversation about like why I really like to come in at a lower point when I'm starting a negotiation. Now, I know there's a lot of different advice out there about negotiating, and of course, like Chris Voss's book, you never want to split the difference. But what I do tend to find is that if you come in at a lower price, it leaves room for negotiation, as opposed to if I come in at a price that's like, this is what I have to be able to hit. This is my true target cost. If I don't get anything here or lower, I'm in trouble with my business. If you start there, you don't really have a ton of room for those negotiation conversations that you should plan to have with your factory. So, a couple of things here. First of all, when you send out a target cost to your factory, let's say I'm sending them a tech pack for this t shirt. I want this t-shirt to cost $25. That's my target cost. You should be asking them as they're making their initial prototype for you to be rolling up all of the different things that create that target cost for you. So, what does it cost them to buy the fabric for this one single t-shirt? What does it cost them to buy any trims, any labels, any packaging that this is going to go to? Add all of that up, put it into what we call a cost breakdown sheet. And we're going to then figure out how to add their overhead, their profit. You kind of want to see about thirds here. So I've talked about this before. I know I'm starting to sound like a broken record on some of this stuff, but you want your fabric to be about a third of the price. You want your trims and packaging to be about a third of the price. And their overhead, margin, profit, all of that good stuff is probably also going to be about a third of the price when it comes to the cost that they're going to give you. Everybody needs to make money. That's business. That's how it works, right? So if you're seeing those types of percentages, that's pretty good. That's a really good indication that you're working with a good partner. Your manufacturer isn't trying to take advantage of you. So when you send that, you should ask for a cost breakdown sheet back. You don't need them to break out like all of their overhead and margin. They can just have a one-liner in there that just says, this is our fee to you. As long as it's 30% or lower, you're in a green range in my book. And so once you get that cost breakdown sheet, it's your responsibility to double check all of the other information. Number one, is their percentage 30% or lower? If it's higher, that's something you could potentially negotiate. Did they get the fabric price right? Do you believe that the yield of the garment that they put in per fabric price is correct? So if they told you it costs $10 per yard for the fabric and they're using 1 yard per t-shirt on average to make this style, and then the total fabric price is $10, like, is that correct? Is your fabric price $10? Can you call up your mill? Can you ask them, hey, what are you actually selling this fabric to the factory for? Is it $10 a yard or is it more or less? You can also have someone check your pattern. Is it actually a yard of fabric that's being used in each t-shirt? Now, you should know, and this is, I'm sorry, I always go on these little tangents, but as I say this stuff, it like pops up into my head. This is going to be an average. So, of course, your extra small garment is going to use less yardage than your double extra large garment, but there should be an average that they can use. And so, if they don't want to like calculate out all of the specific yardage and then do an average for you, you can just ask them to use like your size medium or your size large sample yardage yield to actually give you your fabric price. Okay. So that's something that you can do. But again, you want to be checking all of that. Something else that you want to be checking is all of your trims and all of your packaging prices. Are they listed on there properly? Can you call up your suppliers again and ask them, is this the amount that you're actually selling these garments for? If you're noticing on a couple of different CBDs, maybe they've set you one cost breakdown sheet that has your snaps at 10 cents per snap, and you get another breakdown sheet that says your snaps are actually 11 cents per snap. It's the exact same freaking snap. You need to go back to them and say, hey, why is it 10 cents on this one and it's 11 cents on this one? Sometimes factories will try to hide little costs in there like that. Okay. So that is the first thing that you need to do when you start to go into negotiation. You have to have all the facts. You have to have evaluated those cost breakdown sheets, evaluated those costs, evaluated every line, and know exactly what may or may not be correct. Now, if a cost breakdown sheet looks super dialed and you know that they did everything right and their percentage is 30% or lower, there might be a ton for you to negotiate in that way. Sometimes what you need to do in those cases is actually come in and say, okay, we've got 10 styles with you this season. We've looked at the cost breakdown sheets. They're all very, very accurate. Thank you so much for doing that for us. However, we're willing to accept these 9 prices, how they are, but we really need to get this 10th piece down by $1 a piece or whatever it is that you need so that you can get a little bit of a better margin. And the way to determine that is by taking the piece that you know you're going to sell the most of. So you want the best pricing and the best margin on the pieces that you are going to sell huge amounts of quantity of. So let's say you're going to sell 1,000 of this t-shirt, but you got 9 other pieces in your line, and maybe each of those only sells, a couple hundred units. Those pieces are not going to move your bottom line the way that negotiating the one that's going to sell thousands of units will. So maybe you're willing to go in and say, you know what? I see that maybe you're taking a teeny bit of an extra profit. I see that maybe these prices are a little bit higher than we had wanted when we sent over target costing. We're willing to accept them as long as we can negotiate this one down to our target cost. Can we talk about that? So there are several different things that you can kind of do in there. You can, of course, negotiate more if you are ordering more units. So let's say you originally told your factory that you were only going to buy 1,000 units. That's the forecast that you sent to them. And then you started to get orders in, you started to get a lot of interest, you started meeting with the community, and they're so excited about this piece that you're putting out. Now you can order 3,000 units. Your price should come down because of that, because your factory is going to get a lot more efficient creating 3,000 units instead of just 1,000 units. So you can negotiate based on that as well. There are a couple of different things that, like, when you're going to the negotiation table, again, especially if you're working with overseas factories, you just want to know your numbers and your facts really, really well. You also want to know exactly what it is that you need to make your business feel like it's in a good spot with a weighted total business margin. So, what is the profit margin that you need your business to see so that you can propel it forward in the way that you want or the way that you expect? So, those are the kinds of numbers that you have to crunch before you go to the negotiation table. I'll tend to find that just because I know my shit, when I'm sitting there talking at the negotiation table, it becomes a lot easier because people aren't like trying to nickel and dime me on certain things, or they know I'm not going to put up with that. So coming to the table with your facts, with your knowledge, speaking intelligently to it, not asking the world, also being kind. Oh my God, I have seen so many people go to the negotiation table and be super rude to the people at the factory, and they're not going to help you if you're rude to them. You will always catch more flies with honey than with vinegar. More honey than vinegar. Be nice, for God's sake. You are a partner. Stop trying to bully people into giving you better costing. Be nice. Try to catch that fly with honey. And I'll bet you'll actually get quite a bit farther by being kind and trying to be understanding. And I know, even though I just said, don't try to negotiate and meet in the middle, trying to meet in the middle. Like, it should be a win-win situation for both businesses, especially as you grow a long-term partnership. So I wanted to kind of throw that out there. One of the reasons I like to really start low with my target cost is so that if things change, and we all know that things are changing a lot around here, right? If the tariffs go up, if you have new duty fees, if fabric prices go up, if inflation is crazy, if you have to hire someone new and you have to figure out how to cover that cost, if you can start low and you can get a yes on that low number, it is only going to give you room to be able to absorb any changes that happen between the acceptance of that price and the delivery of your goods. I cannot tell you how many times I've seen people over the last couple of months talk about how their goods were put on a boat, and while they were on the ocean for 45 days, the tariffs were put in place and they weren't prepared and they weren't able to absorb those costs because they only negotiated at a rate that was just right. They didn't negotiate a price that was leaving them any room. So sometimes coming in a little bit low, seeing what you can get can be a really great negotiation tactic, especially right now when things are really, really uncertain and you just don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. So if you have any questions on negotiation, please let me know. It's something that I love to do. I'm one of those weird people who still loves to go to the car dealership and negotiate my price with someone who's standing there. Maybe that makes me weird, but I think it's actually pretty fun to go when we're overseas and we're like traveling in different countries. I love to go to the farmers markets or to the different markets and negotiate and see what I can do in the way of bartering. I just think it's really fun. But so if you have any questions on it, please let me know. I'd be happy to help. In the meantime, happy target costing and have a great Monday and a great week ahead. See you next week.